normal path of one of these fast boats loaded with would be?
It emanates from South America, and it can go a number of routes, right?
Imagine a high-speed chase in the middle of the ocean where the prize is 2 tons of illegal substances worth over $100 million. What happens when elite Navy forces join with the FBI and Coast Guard to intercept an illegal substances cartel's latest smuggling attempt? This mission was no ordinary bust. It involved sophisticated surveillance, cutting-edge technology, and a dramatic helicopter strike to halt smugglers before they could reach the shore. The stakes were enormous, not just in cash, but in lives that might have been affected if the illegal substances had flooded U.S. streets. This is the story of a coordinated effort that crippled one of the most dangerous illegal substances networks, revealing how relentless and precise law enforcement has to be to fight crime on the open sea. The emerging maritime threat. For years, illegal substances cartels relied heavily on land routes to move their shipments into the United States. However, law enforcement agencies began noticing a significant shift. Traffickers were turning to the sea, using speedboats to smuggle massive loads across international waters. This change was not random, but a deliberate tactic to evade tighter border security and avoid detection by traditional checkpoints. The risks for smugglers increased, but so did the sophistication of their methods and vessels. The boats used in these operations earned the nickname go-fast boats for a reason. Designed for speed and agility, these vessels resemble sleek speedboats cranked to the extreme, equipped with twin powerful engines. They operate under the cover of darkness, unregistered and unmarked, making them barely visible to radar. Their ability to reach speeds exceeding 50 miles per hour on open water allows them to outrun many conventional law enforcement crafts. Beyond speed, these boats carry tremendous quantities of cargo, several thousand pounds at a time. One trip can move multi-million-dollar loads of illegal substances across hundreds of nautical miles. The stakes for law enforcement are enormous. If even a single shipment reaches shore, it can flood cities with illegal substances, fueling addiction and crime with rapid and ruthless efficiency. At first, this maritime tactic created a nearly invisible highway for cartels, frustrating agencies bound by jurisdictional limitations in international waters. Traditional policing methods were ineffective at stopping these vessels once they had left coastal borders. This new battleground required a fresh approach, combining intelligence with naval power and legal authority in unfamiliar territory. The complexity of this maritime threat was only just beginning to surface. The transition from land to sea smuggling presented unique challenges for investigators. Tracking these boats required pinpointing their exact course amid thousands of square miles of open ocean, a task likened to finding a needle in a haystack. Their lack of LEDs or proper identification signals compounded this problem, making passive detection nearly impossible. Without proactive intelligence, intercepting such a fast-moving target was a game of chance. Over time, investigators pieced together evidence suggesting a massive operation was underway, one far beyond the scale of previous smuggling attempts. Wiretaps and informants revealed that the same cartel responsible for supplying dangerous illegal substances to cities across America was now operating with a maritime twist. This shift indicated a bold escalation in smuggling tactics, signaling a new battlefront for law enforcement agencies. Despite the danger and uncertainty, there was an advantage. Agencies had access to critical intelligence about routes, timelines, and the behavior of these vessels. This inside knowledge was a lifeline in an otherwise daunting scenario. It set the stage for a high-stakes interception that would hinge on speed, technology, and precision rather than brute force alone. Yet the full scope of the operation, the team assembled, the assets deployed, and the tactical plans remained a secret for now. What happened next would define the future of maritime interdiction and send a clear message to traffickers. The open ocean was no longer a safe haven. Transitioning from this evolving threat, the next phase depended on gathering the intelligence needed to turn shadowy suspicion into actionable targets capable of being intercepted in real time. Intelligence gathering and surveillance. The backbone of this operation was intelligence, rigorous, painstaking, and unrelenting. For 6 months, FBI agents worked out of Miami to unravel the details of the cartel's plans. Their tools were wiretaps, informants embedded within the organization, and months of covert surveillance that slowly illuminated the full scope of the scheme. Every phone call, message, and meeting fed into a growing picture that revealed precisely when and where the next shipment was headed. Wiretapping cartel communications was risky but essential. The information gained helped law enforcement understand timing and coordination, exposing patterns that would otherwise have gone unnoticed. Informants, often working under enormous personal risk, provided inside knowledge about the cartel's methods and routes. Together, these elements formed a mosaic of intelligence that made it possible to anticipate the smugglers' moves. Technology played a pivotal role as well. The FBI and its partners relied on advanced maritime patrol aircraft like the P-8 Poseidon.
The Poseidon P-8 surveillance jet is designed to hunt submarines.
We're here in the P-8 Poseidon, which is the Navy's maritime aircraft focused primarily on anti-submarine warfare,
which could scan vast ocean areas with synthetic aperture radar. This technology could detect small vessels even in adverse weather or low visibility conditions. For the agencies involved, having eyes in the sky for hours at a time was a significant force multiplier, increasing their chances of a successful intercept. Moreover, the FBI, together with the sharing of information by U.S. Navy and Coast Guard, the operation was done legibly and legally, considering the capabilities and jurisdictions of the teams. The entire operation was done on the basis of correct and equal threat assessments, thanks to the info sharing. The coordination of the forces left no area unmonitored, and quick replies were assured at every point of the operation. The whole procedure was not only about watching, but also forecasting. The delivery windows and routes were inspected with the help of the analysts, and they learned to tell when the go-fast boat would set off and where it would go. This kind of predictive intelligence turned out to be very vital. It changed the whole situation from a random chase over open sea to a straight pursuit. It was the knowledge of the exact time and spot to do something that increased the chances of stopping the shipment before it got to the mainland. These kinds of intelligence operations required a lot of discretion and patience, for one mistake could very well tip the cartel off and they would be ready to flee just like the police. The risk was very high, for the exposure of sources or tactics at an early stage could well lead to the collapse of the whole operation. Nevertheless, the timing of the needs to act did put the risks at a lower level, guiding the law enforcement agencies to the point of perfecting plans and being ready to hit. The moment the fast vessel departed the shores of Colombia, the force was already with a thorough description of the target. Speed, size, number of engines, and even certain details of how the vessel managed to escape the radar were all recorded. The intelligence groundwork was what made the entire operation of bringing together surveillance, seagoing assets, and ground troops that would set the trap possible. With intelligence locked in, the next challenge was assembling the right forces. Teams with complementary skills who could work seamlessly to turn data into decisive action. Coordination among agencies. No single agency could handle an operation of this complexity alone. The FBI had the intelligence but no naval assets. The Navy possessed ships and aircraft, but lacked law enforcement authority to make arrests. The Coast Guard, meanwhile, combined maritime law enforcement powers with tactical teams trained specifically for interdiction. Together, these agencies created a formidable partnership. The mission's code name, Operation Ocean Strike, embodied this unprecedented level of coordination at sea. Within hours of confirming the launch of the smuggling boat, the FBI reached out to the Navy and Coast Guard to mobilize a joint task force. Intelligence was immediately shared, and assets began moving into strategic positions across international waters. The center of the naval response was the USS Winston, a 450-foot R. Lee Burke-class destroyer, equipped with advanced radar and communications systems. On board was a Coast Guard law enforcement detachment composed of personnel specially trained in maritime interdiction. This team could legally board, seize, and arrest suspects far beyond U.S. shores, bridging the gap between military capability and law enforcement authority. Simultaneously, a smaller, faster Coast Guard cutter approached from the east. This vessel carried tactical boarding teams adept at handling hostile or evasive vessels. Their role was to get close, secure the boat, and control the suspect crew. The cutter's speed and agility complemented the destroyer's raw power, creating a layered perimeter for interception. Support came from the P-8 Poseidon Maritime Patrol aircraft, which maintained aerial surveillance and tracked the smuggling boat's movements in real time. This eyes-in-the-sky coordination allowed surface vessels and helicopters to close in quickly once the target's location was confirmed. The combined force multiplied their strengths, compensating for each other's limitations. Importantly, legal frameworks underpinned every move. The Coast Guard had unique authority to interdict and arrest vessels suspected of smuggling on the high seas, unlike the Navy, which operates primarily in a military capacity. This cooperation ensured the mission was not only effective, but also legally sound, preventing complications that might jeopardize prosecutions. Communication among agencies remained constant and clear throughout the operation. Command centers coordinated the approach, tracked vessel speed, and adjusted tactics as events unfolded. Training and joint exercises conducted prior to the operation.
Make sure you get some rest before we potentially have another long evening tonight.
In between busts, this crew is always at the ready. That means constantly maintaining the mind and body and boat.
Paid off in flawless execution. Every participant understood their role and how it connected to the larger mission. With ships, aircraft, and law enforcement operatives in position, the stage was set for a high-stakes pursuit. The next moments would test this extraordinary partnership's ability to stop the smugglers before it was too late. The chase that followed would demonstrate the power of combined forces acting with precision under immense pressure. The high-speed pursuit at sea. The moment arrived when every calculation and preparation was put to the test. Hundreds of miles off the coast of Central America, the lookout aboard the Coast Guard cutter spotted the small white speedboat. No flag, no registration, no intention of stopping. This unidentified vessel was cruising at nearly 50 miles per hour, built purely for evasion and speed. It was the very needle in the watery haystack that the FBI and Navy had been hunting for months. With the vessel confirmed as the target, the Navy's USS Winston and the Coast Guard cutter altered course, closing the distance with purposeful precision. The destroyer's advanced radar tracked the boat relentlessly while onboard Coast Guard law enforcement officers prepared for a high-risk boarding. Without warning, the smugglers realized they had been spotted, and what was initially a stealth operation turned into a desperate attempt to flee. As soon as the challenge was issued, the go-fast boat's engines roared to life. Water churned violently as it surged forward, bouncing over the ocean's waves at full throttle. The Cartel crew zigzagged with desperation, trying to outmaneuver a fleet that combined brute force with tactical agility. Behind the scenes, a smaller interceptor craft launched from the cutter, piloted by a tactical team ready for close pursuit. This chase was unlike any ordinary police operation. Out here on the open sea, backup was hundreds of miles away, and the stakes could not have been higher. The fleeing boat's speed tested the limits of the Coast Guard's over-the-horizon capabilities, while the destroyer and cutter formed a tightening net. Every second counted as the smugglers jettisoned their cargo, dumping bales into the ocean to destroy evidence and lighten the load.
Most of it was found on smuggling boats. The rest was found floating in bales on the water. The Coast Guard is scheduled to offload the estimated at $35 million today.
However, the chase was still going on. The implacable measures taken by the smugglers could only be regarded as a confession, and this, in turn, heightened the necessity of taking prompt action. At the same time, the MH-60 Seahawk helicopter that was on the destroyer made a thunderous noise and went into action immediately. This amazing piece of equipment was the Navy's biggest trump card, since it could cover long distances quickly and take aerial control of the chase. The Seahawk did not waste time and quickly flew over the sea to reach the boat that was escaping. The smugglers were already seen from the air as having no place to go. Their arrogance was broken and fear took over when the realization came: no more flight. The arrival of the helicopter changed the course of the operation. It would be the one to bring the chase to an end and make sure that the seizure would be successful. The helicopter crew were communicating exact coordinates and tactical options to the teams on the ground through the ocean spray that was whipping around. Every action was carefully planned in order to avoid losing more evidence or endangering law enforcement staff. It was the time when huge power had to be combined with lethal precision. Law enforcement was ready to take the final steps that would conclude this high-risk pursuit. With the suspects trapped and the speed engines in the crosshairs, the arrests of the smugglers were about to happen. The chase was relentless, but what came next would show how precision, not just power, was the ultimate weapon. Precision strike and seizure. The critical moment arrived when the helicopter's specially trained team was called into action. The Hytron Helicopter Interdiction Tactical Squadron consisted of precision marksmen whose mission was to disable the vessel without endangering any lives. Their target was clear: the go-fast boat's engines. These were the engines that propelled the smugglers and their cargo toward freedom, and now they would become the point of intervention. Closing to within 50 yards, the marksmen steadied their rifles. Unlike most confrontations, the goal was not to stop the crew, but to halt the boat, effectively neutering it mid-escape. Controlled bursts of highly accurate fire found their marks. One engine erupted in a shower of metal and smoke, while the second engine seized, propellers grinding to a violent halt. Suddenly, the speedboat lurched and stalled, dead in the water over 1,000 miles from shore. With the engines disabled, the smugglers' desperate efforts came to an abrupt end. There was no chance of outrunning the Coast Guard cutter or the boarding team now closing fast. The crew was surrounded, outmatched, and without escape. Meanwhile, bales of illegal substances still bobbing in the water reflected the colossal loss the cartel had just suffered. The Coast Guard boarding team quickly secured the suspects, reading them their rights and taking them into custody. Every pound of the nearly 2.5 tons of illegal substances was carefully photographed, weighed, and catalogued. Meticulous chain of custody procedures ensured that the evidence would stand up in court, not just against these two smugglers, but potentially against the entire cartel structure. Once seized, the authorities made an immediate and calculated decision regarding the compromised speedboat. Built for crime and now riddled with bullet holes, it was deemed a hazard to navigation. The Coast Guard intentionally sank the vessel, sending the shattered engines and their law-breaking platform to rest on the ocean floor. This seizure was far more than a single bust. It was a message sent loud and clear across the trafficking networks. The operation's success revealed the depth of coordination and expertise required to turn intelligence into action and action into lasting impact. It demonstrated that even the fastest, most elusive vessels had nowhere to run when faced with precision tactics. As the arrested smugglers were transported back for interrogation, another phase of the operation began. Analyzing phones, contacts, and communication would help ripple through the cartel's infrastructure, ensuring this victory would lead to many more. While the engines were silenced and the cargo secured, the fight against this network was just beginning. With the smugglers stopped and their cargo seized, the broader implications of this operation started to unfold on multiple fronts. Aftermath and impact. The seizure of over 2 tons of pure illegal substances was more than a single victory. It delivered a critical blow to a sprawling and dangerous cartel network. At street value, the haul represented roughly $100 million, and when divided into smaller doses, it potentially prevented millions of individual doses from reaching American communities.
These interdictions in international waters can be spectacular, and we see these images, but what we don't see is what happens after the interception.
Beyond the immediate financial impact, the interdiction disrupted a key maritime trafficking route, striking at the heart of the cartel's operations and saving countless lives from addiction and overdoses. The arrest of 2 smugglers and the confiscation of their vessel sent shockwaves through the organization. Law enforcement immediately began analyzing phones, messages, and contacts, tracing leads that extended deep into the cartel's international operations. The bust sparked a cascade of follow-up actions. 3 additional interdictions, at least 5 further arrests, and 2 safe house raids, steadily dismantling the cartel's ability to coordinate shipments and maintain secrecy. Each action compounded pressure on the network, demonstrating how a single successful operation can ripple outward to inflict lasting damage. Meticulous evidence management was critical. Every brick of illegal substances was carefully documented, weighed, and logged to maintain a complete chain of custody. This ensured that prosecutions against the smugglers and potentially higher-level cartel figures would hold up in court, increasing the likelihood of long sentences and further weakening the organization. The sinking of the Go-Fast boat served both practical and symbolic purposes. It removed a vessel designed explicitly for illicit trafficking and sent a strong deterrent message to other criminals. Public announcements and joint press conferences by the Coast Guard, Navy, and FBI amplified the operation's significance, signaling that sea smuggling routes are no longer safe. Operation Ocean Strike highlighted the effectiveness of interagency cooperation, combining human intelligence, aerial surveillance, specialized teams, and precision enforcement. Ultimately, the operation demonstrates that the fight against illegal substances begins far offshore and relies on coordinated, innovative action. Operation Ocean Strike sets a benchmark for maritime law enforcement, showing that a united, well-planned strategy can dismantle criminal networks and produce a lasting, meaningful impact. This operation shows how intelligence, technology, and teamwork come together to stop dangerous shipments before they reach our shores. 2 tons of illegal substances seized, lives saved, and a powerful message sent to trafficking networks. If you found this story compelling, be sure to like and subscribe for more real law enforcement missions revealed. Thanks for watching and stay curious.